Because this time, he's not handling some eldritch creatures or some insane viral outbreak. No, chat. He's looking at something that could be happening in your home right this very moment. That's right. It's time for Roanoake talking about Home Alone. Roanoake is going to be discussing Kevin! And Merry Christmas, YouTube Nick. Merry Christmas. Alright, let's see what Roanoake has to say about Kevin.
You know what time it is. You know why we're here. First and foremost, Merry Christmas, as I think this will be the last video I actually upload before Christmas, and if you don't celebrate that, well, have a good holiday or whatever you do, or don't celebrate, I guess just have fun. So I was sitting there the other day and I wanted to try something a little different this year. Mainly because I've already covered the most festive of necromorphs a few years ago, that giant spider thing from Dead Space 3. Remember how the thing would take you out? Good lord, ouchies. Anyhow, speaking of horrific levels of body alterations and spinal snaps, this year I figured we'd cover all the ways in which Harry and Marv, also known as the Wet Bandits because the douchers would leave straight up sinks running, adding insult to injury, literally bite the dust for that one. Now obviously this detracts a little bit from what I normally do, but hey, that doesn't matter because it's fun and it's a festive time of year. There's no way this doesn't end up in a mass unsubbing. So let's get to it. Also, I'm in North Dakota in the middle of a blizzard right now in my truck recording because I'm with my girlfriend's family and there's a lot of people in the house and a lot of kids too, so I can't really record. So if you hear a bunch of wind noise in the background, yeah, that's because I'm sitting in my truck in an open field. Anyways, we kick off our story with a strange question. How does this dad afford this house on a single income? What does this dude actually do? Also, this house is up for—
Wait, I always got the impression that both parents worked. That not just the dad, but I always got the impression that mom worked too. Anybody else get that impression? She seemed like she was a professional businesswoman based on how she presented herself. Anybody? Am I wrong? I always got that both parents worked. Yeah.
For sale, if I remember correctly. As someone letting a cop, step one, never let a cop into your house just randomly, not because of some crazy thing, but more like, you know, come back with a warrant, rights and all that. As he tries to track down any offspring that will answer his questions, Mr. Calkin goes to harass his mom about watching a movie. To be quite frank with you, everyone in this family is a complete turd to Kev's on the bus over here, and for realistically no reason. As the dad comes out, he talks about how they're going to France. Why? Why would you ever go there? That's basically the planet's California. Kev is instructed to go pack his suitcase as Joe Pesci continues asking offspring where their parents are. They continue cyberbullying Kevin, who is gonna go full on trench coat at some point if this treatment continues. Also, fun fact, this house, like what you're seeing right now, the whole thing was built in a gymnasium at a school. It's not a real house. However, the house outside is a real house. So as Kevin goes to hang out with Broham, worried about French babes not shaving their pits, brother, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, there are no French babes. They're French. Going to look at Old Man Marley, he's spreading salt out on the driveway with the same shovel that he murdered half the neighborhood with, apparently. Unconvicted though, don't worry about it. Being spotted, they hide as Tokyo Drift shows up with a pizza, 20 minutes or you don't pay. So people have died actually in real life because of Domino's promotion where it was 30 minutes or you don't pay. Pretty rough. Yep. As the cop answers the—
And that's why they got rid of it. Domino's got rid of the, it's to you in 30 minutes or it's free, because their drivers would actually drive recklessly, disobey traffic laws, get into really nasty fucking accidents, because if the driver was late and the pizza, and they had to give them the pizza for free, they would dock the driver's pay. So the drivers would drive like fucking Formula One racers and violate every fucking traffic law known to man to get that pizza to their customer in 30 minutes. And because so many accidents happened, Domino's went, okay, we're not doing the 30 minutes or free thing anymore. Because so many of their drivers were getting into very serious or even fatal accidents. Because, yeah, they don't want to get their pay docked because they couldn't get it to them in 30 minutes.
Door and gets the pizza. The homeowner then spills spaghetti out of his pocket about the home's security measures to him. He fails to inform him, though, that a psycho will be left behind to defend the property. This would be considered entrapment in later trials. As Fuller then drinks a product placement Pepsi, the milk is spilled and Kevin gets called a jerk by an adult. This whole family absolutely sucks. So being—
And that is the overriding thing. Through both movies, the beginning of the movie, the families are horrible to Kevin. Absolutely horrible to him. And I think that's where the theory about that Kevin turned into the Jigsaw Killer came from, is because in both movies, at the beginning of it, every member of the entire extended family are despicable to Kevin. They treat him like shit. They punish him when he's the one getting bullied by like a fucking teenager in both movies, and they take it out on him. They treat him like the bad guy, and that's why the theory came about that Kevin became the Jigsaw Killer, because he developed this twisted sense of justice and vowed that he would facilitate justice and punish those that did wrong, and that those that had done wrong would be forced to atone for their sins, basically. And it makes perfect sense because, yeah, the entire extended family are an absolute bunch of assholes. Absolute assholes to him. All the time.
Sent to the attic, everyone continues to be a total clown to Kevin. No wonder he wishes for all of them to disappear, and then later snaps. Having learned all the information necessary because the homeowners are dumb, just assuming a dude with a badge should know all this information, in Chicago no less, Mr. Pe-
And again, I pointed this out when we watched this on movie night. It's the wrong fucking badge. That is not a Chicago PD badge. Neither is the one on his jacket. Chicago PD has stars, not squarish shields. It is the completely wrong badge. That irritated the fuck out of me. Well, Revan, I'm from Chicago. Trust me, I know what the Chicago PD badge looks like. I'm from there. They are stars. Chicago PD badges are stars, not shields.
She then smiles at them, and then the mom also spills spaghetti out of her pocket about how they're leaving tomorrow. Did anyone check his credentials? Also, absolutely wild that they were putting this kid like an unheated attic.
Yes, they should, TX.
He doesn't want to see them anymore, which, I mean, honestly, totally valid.
No, action bastard, I did not get arrested several times, and that's how I know what the badges look like. I've known cops back in Chicago. When I grew up in Chicago, I knew multiple cops. Not as a criminal, but like as friends. I knew multiple cops, so I'm very familiar with how basically all like a wide variety of the police departments in Illinois, what their badges look like, and they're stars. They're not shields.
Not gonna lie, though, kind of a sick attic. As night settles, a storm then rolls in as a tree branch blows out a transformer with the airport people showing up that morning.
That's
checking her watch, everyone slept in as they scramble to get to the airport. Being harassed by the neighborhood offspring, everyone then loads up and counts heads as Buzz starts being a moron, allegedly, with the neighbor offspring running off. Heading to the airport, they have 45 minutes as they evidently just made it. They even reopened the doors. Man, pre-9/11 was a crazy time for planes. No shot you're making it in 45 minutes today. 3 hours domestic, 6 hours international. Back at the house, Kevin wakes up to nobody there as his family takes off on the plane. Turning on the TV, he then looks around and sees absolutely no one. So not only do they live in that house, but they are also all sitting first class, at least the adults are. Seriously, what does this dad do for a living? With Kevin free to roam the house unimpeded, he immediately heads down to the basement where all the lights are on. Spotting the furnace, which these things were actually super expensive back in the day, he then runs outside as all the cars are still there, and he realizes his family did disappear, which sounds great in theory until the people show up and put you in foster care. Really, now it's just a montage of doing stuff until the power goes out. Grabbing the BB Force, now, I guess I really wouldn't call it multiplier, maybe like magnifier. He then proceeds to eat like we all would as a kid as he watches Angels with Filthy Souls. Not giving the guy more than 10 seconds, he then lights him up, telling him to keep the change, you filthy animal, as Mom of the Year checks through everything, trying to figure out if she left something behind. Realizing pretty quickly she left Kevin, her almonds are immediately activated. Oopsie doopsies, you just made a big fucky wucky. Now his murder spree.
Well, okay. Bad dirty bird. Yes. I fully appreciate that, I was overreacting kind of as a goof. Yes, I know the whole point is he's not a cop. He was actually a criminal, and he was posing as a cop to basically stake out and get intel on the families and find out if they were leaving or not and what their security systems look like. I fully appreciate that. I'm sorry, but the badge thing just triggered my tism. And so I just went full tism on the cop badge. I'm fully aware that The whole purpose was he's supposed to be in disguise. I get it, but he had the Chicago PD jacket on. He even had the Chicago PD duty belt and gun. So my tism went schizo, and I went, "That's not the real Hedge." I have those moments. I can't help them. I'm sorry.
Her almonds are immediately activated. Oopsie doopsies, you just made a big fucky wucky. Now his murder spree will continue unhampered. That night, though, the wet bandits have arrived, and as they watch the lights cut on, pretty much there is no one at any of their houses. Grabbing crowbars, they go to raid the house as Kevin then watches the Grinch.
Merry
Now,
Christmas,
Drow.
Merry Christmas.
Pulling up to the garage, they whisper outside, which is somehow actually heard by Kevin. Like, those windows have to be super thin, and then flipping on the lights, the wet bandits nope out of there, assuming the parents to be home.
Don't forget, they were at the freaking basement. When Kevin heard them, they were going downstairs to this basement door, and he was up in the living room. Now, hold on, how did he hear them? And hi, Silver. Thank you for your picture present. Thank you very much, Silver.
Parents to be home. Meanwhile, at a hell on earth at the airport of Paris, they bully a French woman for the phone, as then they go to call home. Kevin then amps himself up about being the man of the house, since everyone else is gone, as he runs out yelling, he's not afraid anymore, immediately spotting the shovel murderer, running
and
back
then becomes
to his
afraid.
Home. Calling the cops, she then gets the runaround, and then asks if someone will just go check on Kevin. Well, what are these taxes for? So they finally go to send a cop over to check on him, but Kevin doesn't answer because he has pretty much peed himself because he's scared. Doing the civic duty thing, the cop immediately gives up and then leaves. Nice.
Okay, now, this is an actual cop, and again, he has a shield, not a bat. Okay? This is an actual cop, and actually, this is probably a village cop. So this is this is not a CPD. This is probably, let's see, they lived at, where's the house located? I'm trying to remember. That house is located in one of the northern suburbs. Hang on, let me find it. This is gonna bug me. I've got to figure out what village this is in. It is in Winnetka. Okay, so this is probably this is like either a town or village of Winnetka police officer. Yeah, they're in the northern suburbs of Chicago, which again should have sparked another thing because he didn't actually say CPD, but yeah. So this is, I can't even tell if this badge is actually Winnetka PD. That might actually be a Winnetka PD. Yeah, I think it is. I think that's actually a Winnetka PD patch. So this, I'm wondering if they actually brought in a Winnetka PD officer and then they just took off his badge because no, Revan, CPD and all the surrounding towns and villages out around Chicago have had stars for a very long time. They may have changed the shape of the stars. Like most of them, they have like 5-point stars, and I think maybe some of them might have actually switched to like a 6-point star versus a 5-point star. But they always had stars. That was always even back in like the 80s. I don't think they've ever had shields. So yeah, and it's exactly like I think this might actually be a real Winnetka PD officer, and they swapped out his star for a shield for the movie. And yeah, because yeah, who knows, maybe he was a real cop. But another point of note I need to make about this. I needed to make a point about this when we watched Home Alone, is that people shit on the cop because he just walked up, rang the doorbell, knocked on the door, and just said, "There's no one here. The doors are secure. Tell them to count their kids," and left. Legally speaking, this cop could not force entry. Legally speaking, this cop had no justifiable reason to force entry. He did not observe anything untoward happening inside. He didn't see like Kevin laying face down through the windows that would necessitate that there is a threat of life or bodily harm that he could force entry. And if he had booted open the door and the person calling the police department was not actually his mother and like was just pretending, then the police would be on the hook for illegal entry and could get sued. And he had no probable cause, he had no warrant. He was basically just doing a welfare check, and if all the doors are locked, that's all he can do. He can shake the doors, okay, they're locked. And look, he can like look through the windows, okay, there's nothing in there, and that's literally all he can do. There, legally speaking, there was nothing more that he could do because you can't simply just believe that someone on the phone is actually who they say they are these days. It's, unless you actually have someone come to the police department and actually present their ID and say, I'm the mom, here's the ID, here's the address. Unless someone can do that, you can't just believe someone calling you up, calling a police department on the phone, say, oh, my kid's home alone, I need you to boot the fucking door in. You need to have, well, it's not exactly exigent circumstances, Revan. It's number one, you need probable cause, and or at minimum, you need I don't think it's referred to as exigent circumstances, at least legally speaking. I could be mistaken about that, but I'm pretty sure there's I'm trying to remember the terminology where it's something where there's an observation of someone in trouble and an officer has a duty to act in that case where they would be able to like, force entry into the home. It could be accident circumstances. I thought for some reason there was a different terminology used in a legal context, but maybe it is exigent circumstances. Extenuating, that could be it. I can't exactly remember. Wouldn't they be charged with child endangerment? Well, Revan, here's the problem. Yes, the parents could be charged with child endangerment. But again, at this state in the movie, they have no evidence to substantiate that the woman that called the police department is the mother. She is a voice on the phone. There's nothing to prove that this is the mother actually calling in about an actual child in this house. It could potentially be a neighbor or someone that has an axe to grind on the family that just wants to fuck with the family and have a cop like in the door by saying, "Oh, my child's in their home alone," just to fuck with the family. That's being done. People have done that. People have made false police reports specifically so the cops will go fuck with the family or try and force entry into a family home just to screw with that family. So that's why this cop, legally speaking, can't do anything. It's why he can't just boot the door in. Legally, he's not allowed to. Anyway, moving on.
And then leaves. Nice. The next day, Kevin then burns his face with aftershave as pretty much, I'm now realizing what my life has become.
Okay, this is another thing. I didn't
Kevin
mention this during the movie. Kevin didn't shave. So why, when he slaps on aftershave, does he scream in pain? The main reason why aftershave burns is, well, this is back when aftershave had alcohol in it, Robin. Remember, this is the 80s. This was the 80s, so there was alcohol in it. And the problem is Kevin didn't shave. So he did not agitate his skin by shaving, therefore opening the pores, therefore allowing the alcohol to elicit that burning sensation. And it's not even with razor burn, Keep-sama. It's like anybody that shaves any part of their body, face, chest, legs, underarms, etc., regardless, if you post-shave, right after you shave, if you use an alcohol-based, in this case, aftershave, it will burn.
You'll just keep making that sound? Really? Daddy's head explodes?
Yeah, it's because when you shave, you're opening your pores. Yeah, you're opening your pores. You can get your micro cuts. Same thing happens with like under the arms. It's back in the day, deodorant used to have some deodorants. If memory serves, some deodorants actually had alcohol in them, like as a propellant. And so, like when ladies would shave under their arms and then use deodorant, under their arms, it would actually burn because because you've got tiny microcuts, and you also have the skin is agitated and the pores have opened up, and the alcohol irritates it, and that's where you get the aftershave or the old school deodorant burn from the alcohol getting into that. And Kevin didn't shave. He did not shave, so he did not agitate his skin. He didn't create microcuts. He didn't create, he didn't open his pores up. So why is he slapping on deodorant and screaming like it hurts? That always bothered me. He shouldn't be screaming in pain because it's not burning.
As pretty much, I'm now realizing what my life has become as I wrote this. What a character arc. Breaking the shelves, he then steals money from his brother and releases the 8-legger. Gross. Heading outside, he spots the Wet Bandits van across the way in another yard, well, driveway technically, and inside they are raiding the house for everything as they hear a message meant for the neighbor about how they are actually gone and they should check on Kevin. Kevin, meanwhile, is grilling an old lady about a toothbrush. Shovel Killer then shows up, walking up on Kevin like a total creepazoid as his hand has been wounded. Running away, he steals the toothbrush by accident as Jimmy then gives chase and then immediately gives up because he can't catch a small child as then he sicks an overweight cop on him. Running home, Marv does the mega douche thing and then runs the sink while they leave. Telling Harry, he says it's their calling card. Yes, so now they can link you to all of the break-ins in the area. Very good. So as Kevin walks home, he almost gets run over by Harry as then he smiles at him and he
Beam, thank you for the tier 2. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas as well. Just check, the cop shown is actually the same actor that's in the black and white film that Kevin is watching, Ralph Foodie. Oh, really? The cop that knocks on the door is the same guy that plays Johnny in Angels with Filthy Souls. Oh, Taffy, that is fascinating. I had no idea about that. That's really cool, I gotta say. Nice. Nice little Easter egg there.
Sees his gold tooth, which is what the cop had earlier. Following him home, Kev's on the bus then breaks out into a run as they wonder why he would be running. Probably because you're a creeper in a van rolling up on him.
What
running to a
are
church
you running?
because the Lord is absolutely based. He then hides in a nativity scene as then he heads home and he says he will be ready when they come back. That night, he stages a party at the house and inquiring minds wish to know how he got all of these mannequins. Also, how does he know exactly when they are supposed to show up? Is he just doing this the entire night? Meanwhile, in
but they're not mannequins. Roanoke. Oh, hold on. Well, he did have a couple mannequins. He did have a couple mans and a couple of cardboard cutouts that he was using to mimic mannequins. So he did have 2 or 3 mannequins, and yeah, the question does lie: where did these mannequins come from? Although we didn't see everything that was crammed into that attic, so. And Mom did have like a dressmaker's, like a oh God, what's it called? Like a dressmaker stand. So maybe Mom's in the fashion industry, and so she has mannequins. Maybe that's part of like how they make so much money. The dad does something, Mom does fashion, and she has mannequins. Maybe. That could be it.
France, everyone eats the things meant for later. Again, who keeps inviting Frank? No idea. Back at home, the pizza man then shows up to drop off the pizza as he's told to leave it on the doorstep and get out of there. $12 for a pizza? We used to be a proper country. Scaring the pizza man, he then nopes out.
Okay, all I'm gonna say, when Roanoke is saying like $12 for a pizza, oh man, we used to be a proper country. Caesars is still $5. Little Caesars still does the $5 pizza. It does. I'm just saying. Just saying. You still got the you got the $5 hot and ready. Okay, $6. $6 hot and ready. That's still just, and I'll tell you something. I can get a Domino's for, now granted, this is before tax, but I can get Domino's here for, I think it's like $12. I think a medium cheese pizza from Domino's by me is like $12. Now, that's before taxes, but it's still $12. Just saying.
$12 for a pizza? We used to be a proper country. Scaring the pizza man, he then nopes out of there as mom tries to make a deal with an old person, and
No,
she says
Revan, I'm
she is
cheese
desperate,
only.
ain't we
I need
all?
cheese pizza
Heading to
girl.
bed that night, it is now the next day. I'm sure the horrors of home break-ins will commence any moment now. Unloading the groceries, the gal is fairly suspicious, who is in the middle of checking out the groceries for Kevin. 1983 for groceries?
Yes, this killed me. Oh my God, when we watched this killed me. All that stuff he bought, less than $20. Dear God, that wounded me. Absolutely wounded me that all that stuff was that cheap. Oh yeah, rather all that, yeah. 50, try 100. All the stuff that he bought here combined would probably be close to $100. And hi, McCargo, Merry Christmas.
In the middle of checking out the groceries for Kevin.
Like, that
1983
detergent
for
alone
groceries?
is like $10.
We used to be a proper country. Heading home, Tide product placement. A furnace then cuts on once more as wet bandits lurk in the distance. Mr. Pesci doesn't get why the house looked like it was jumping last night, and now it looks abandoned. Yes, that is in fact how parties work. People go home. That's what you're supposed to do. Anyways, Marv goes to
Yeah.
break in as Kev's on the bus, then cuts on Filthy Souls, which then scares Marv away. The issue is Pesci thinks ahead and wants to stick around to identify who got blown away so that they don't get stuck with a murder charge. Back at the airport, everything is booked and she is screwed and stuck in Scranton. Was it Scranton, Pennsylvania or something like that? Luckily, John Candy is randomly in the background and hears her plight. Offering a ride as their flight is canceled with one L, since we gave England that extra L in 1776, they'll give her a ride to Chicago as it's on the way. That's 703 miles in the Lord's units for reference, or in the heathenistic metric units, which nobody actually uses, that's 1,130 kilometers. Which don't matter, because that's a completely made-up measurement. I mean, who really looked at 1 mile and said, oh, we should make this 1.6 kilometers or whatever it is? Maybe it's like 1.2. Anyways,
rest
waiting
of the
outside,
world,
Kevin then
Roanoke.
comes out, cutting down part of the tree as then he goes and decorates it. However, the jig is up, the news is out as they appear in the window. Kevin sees a reflection in the ornament as he yells out for his dad as Pesci says he's home alone. Ha! He said it. Deciding that they're coming back that night, having a conversation in broad daylight out loud in the middle of somebody's yard in the open where everybody can hear them. They say they'll be back at 9. Meanwhile, in the polka van, it's a living hell for 703 miles. Heading over to Santa's house, Santa got a parking ticket on Christmas Eve as Kevin immediately tells him his address and then asks for
By the way,
Santa got a
fun
parking-
trivia fact. This actor that played Santa, I think after he did Home Alone, he was cast as one of the, I don't know where I don't know where I read this or where I saw the clip of this, which, he has a kind of a distinctive voice. But, this actor that plays Santa, after this movie, got cast as one of the people from the TV show Herman's Head. There were like 4 actors that played like different personalities. Inside, it's basically Inside Out before, like, decades before Inside Out. It's called Herman's Head. He played one of the people. Yeah, one of the characters that represented one of the personalities inside Herman's brick. That guy Herman inside his brick. He played one of them. I can't remember if he was like the hedonistic one or lazy one or something. But he played one of those characters, and then he went on to play Max in Armageddon. He was in Armageddon with, Bruce Willis and oh God, what's his name? I just blanked on his name. Oh dear God, I just blanked his name. His name just flew right out of my head. Yes, Ben Affleck. God, his name just went right out of my head. And Steve Buscemi. Yes. Yeah, I completely lost Ben Affleck's name. It flew right on my head. Yeah, Billy Bob Thornton. But he was part of he got cast in the role of Max in Armageddon as well. That's who this actor is.
ticket on Christmas Eve as Kevin immediately tells him his address and then asks for his family back.
Yes, well, Captain Marie, the patch on the patch on police jackets are always a shield. The patches are not stars. The patches are always shields, but the badges are stars.
On Christmas Eve, as Kevin immediately tells him his address and then asks for his family back. Giving Kevin some product placement Tic Tacs, Santa's Honda is a 1982 Honda Civic. No shot that thing wouldn't go. Now stalled because of a loosey-goosey clutch, maybe a bit more in line with reality. I actually sort of forgot how long this movie is before the body-crushing injuries start. Hopefully you're just enjoying the ride so far, and if not, well, you're a nerd. Just understand, I'm actually recording for you in negative 2-degree temperatures in my truck, and the heat is already gone in this thing. It's because I love you. That's the type of parasocial bonding that built this channel. Anyways, finding a family that actually likes one another, it further highlights Kev's on the bus is totally alone this year. Walking past the church, he decides to head inside, and holding choir practice in there, he spots Shovel Killer.
This was the best scene in the movie.
SK then gets up and approaches
This
him,
was the
telling him
best
Merry
scene in
Christmas
the whole
and asks
movie, right
if he
here.
can sit down. His granddaughter is up there singing in the choir as they talk. What's really crazy is SK is aware there are a lot of things going around about him. So Shovel Killer really knows he's the Shovel Killer. Was the story true? Because otherwise, why would he actually care what a bunch of younglings think about him unless there was some sort of, adults must be talking about it. Nobody cares. If a bunch of kids thought I was a Shovel Killer, I'd be like, absolutely I am. But if a bunch of adults...
Don't stop it! He's a kindly old grandfather and doesn't want Kevin to be scared of him. They're not like you, Roanoke. Stop it!
Ooh, that's not good. Anyways, so
Hi,
Shovel
Black
Killer
Wolf,
apparently
Merry
had an argument with
Christmas.
his son, and they haven't spoken to each other since, which is dumb because life is finite. Talk while you can. So they shake hands as Shovel Killer says he will potentially go and call his son while Kev's on the bus goes to set up the house of death traps. Finally, it's happening. I really forgot how long they hold off for this part. So getting home, he locks up the house as he says he has to defend it. Wasting time drawing plans first for some reason, he then goes and sets up the house with water, tar, and many other traps as well as fallback points to enter the treehouse. Eating dinner, it's 8:57. Luckily, the Wet Bandits are very punctual about their time frames, and eating product placement Kraft mac and cheese, the clock strikes 9. The clock strikes 12. Anyways, he locks and loads Brides of Christ. And knocking on the door, they taunt Kevin as he fires a BB gun right into the bags of Joe Pesci. Here we go. Now, given the paint material in the way, incredibly painful, but not exactly going to break the skin. However, given that I've made a direct strike, this could cause bruising and even bleeding in that area, and this in turn
now we
cause
get the
a
science.
rupturing to take place. Now, the question is, why does a nut shot hurt so bad? Well, think about it from a genetic prodigy level. It is natural for males to compete and fight over females. However, when the prodigy bag gets hit, it's sort of like the body's off switch. The fight is over immediately because future offspring are threatened. What's interesting is how the pain actually travels and why it travels. The genital femoral nerve, which innervates the testes and scrotum, will carry the pain signal specifically to the spinal area known as L1 and L2. This is the lumbar area of the spine, which houses the linguinal nerve, which will actually send out sharp radiating pain signals that then travel up the pedunal nerve. As it's important to remember, the genitofemoral nerve also shares this area of the spine with nerves that detect pain from the abdomen, which is why it feels like it's moving upwards and why your stomach will hurt. This is pretty much what's going to end fights immediately between males. The signal also does not subside quickly either. And now you know Joe Pesci's testicle being hit and in pain. The associated reasons about it. God, I love it here. So Marv then puts his face through the dog door next as he's immediately shot in the forehead. While painful, the human skull can easily withstand that sort of hit. Harry then goes around to the front, where we get potentially our first life-altering injury. Going up the stairs, he slips, landing on his spine full force. Now, even while not that high, it's important to remember the human body is something of a glass cannon. This type of fall can actually easily put you out of the game and even paralyze you. Now, I'm gonna do some force and physics and all that stuff. Bear with me, but let's assume Joe Pesci is around 160 pounds, and let's say the fall was around 3 feet or so. Given that he lands on a hard surface, the reality is that that amount of force would be somewhere in the range of 14,600 pounds of force. And depending on which vertebrae we are talking about, with the lumbar being the larger of the vertebrae, realistically, it only takes around 2,200 pounds of force to actually cause a crushing injury to vertebrae. And given that is over 7 times the amount of what was actually applied,
and this isn't the worst fall he took either.
Likely that Harry would have broken his back in this instance. The issue is when a vertebrae breaks, while it can be crunched, so to speak, what really happens is shards can be pushed into the spinal cord. Once this happens, this can actually lead to paralysis through spinal severing, meaning he would probably not be walking away from this. Now, it's also based on pure chance as well. Obviously, in life, it could happen, but how a person falls could prevent being paralyzed. However, in this case, Harry probably isn't walking away without some sort of tweaked back at best or paralysis.
And the funny part is, this isn't the worst fall that Harry takes with these steps. I think Roanoke's gonna go over the other one. His second fall is like 100 times worse and should have been fatal. Like his second fall absolutely should have been fatal, and I hope Roanoke talks about it.
At worst. It really is that easy to screw yourself up. So, knocking the wind out of himself, Marv immediately falls down the stairs now as well. Now, the benefit of him in this instance is that he slides rather than stops, transferring the force. However, given that he was sliding, you're talking about ruptured blood vessels in the thigh region and possibly a bruised pelvis and femoral area. Not lethal, but painful nonetheless. Getting back up to actually break into the house, the crowbar then falls on his head. This alone, from that height, could actually crack your skull or cause a subdural brain bleed quite easily. However, the real dead man is still Harry. As he tries to get back up, he straight up falls backwards again, landing on his neck. Now, the issue here is the cervical vertebrae are much more delicate than the lumbar vertebrae.
Yes.
They are not
they should
designed
have
to handle
killed him.
crushing blows, which they only actually require roughly about 390 pounds of force before they will start
Yes,
splintering.
this should have 100% killed
him.
him.
Something I had no idea I was going to do right up until just now, and issue a death count. Marv dies right here from a snapped neck, severing the spinal column, leading to immediate shock.
This is Roanoke. This is not Marv. This is Harry. Joe Pesci was Harry, not Marv. Sorry, it's nitpicky, but Roanoke, I'm sorry, you got this wrong. I'm sorry, I have to ding you for this. Ding! Roanoke got it wrong.
In a flatline. There is no shot after landing this way that he was getting back up to raid that house. Along with that, the stairs themselves would be pushing in on the cervical vertebrae, inducing a focal point that would also damage the spine greatly. So as Marv goes to get back up, he gets his footing as then he goes to break in. He's able to just open the door because it was just open, and then walking in, he starts turning on the lights as this triggers a trap. A clothes iron from this era, and judging by what I'm seeing, it's probably going to weigh about 3 to 4 pounds. And given, let's say it falls around 15 feet or so and strikes him square in the face, this would probably be about 18,000 pounds of force spread out over a very small distance to
Busted
stop.
nose.
At minimum, a severe concussion could not be avoided, which would lead to actual brain damage. This would mean, at minimum, some of the neurons in the frontal lobe would necrose inside of the skull. Along with this, the nasal bone would be broken easily, and coupled with this, the maxilla would also be fractured in several places, and the teeth would probably be dislodged, as well as the frontal bone of the skull would be cracked in a few places.
Oh,
this
yeah,
could trigger
like
immense bleeding
there'd be an
around the
orbital
eyes,
fracture
as the
for
orbital
sure.
bone would be broken, which would then lead to black eyes. Internally, intracranial hemorrhage would be highly likely due to the impact force. So at minimum, a trip to the ICU. At maximum, knocked out.
Oh yeah, like GX, if the iron had rotated so the point was front, that would have actually like pierced through his skull and like basically just bulldozed right into Marv's brain if they had gone point first. Although with the flat part, because Marv tipped his head back and was looking up at the iron as it was falling, and it hit him squarely in the face, it would have shoved his nose right into his face. Because that iron hit him flat on the face. It would have shoved his basically nasal bone right up into his head.
Compromised airway and potential death. So, second death very likely confirmed. However, Harry miraculously survives, as then he goes to grab the door handle and burns his hand. Well, Harry didn't survive the clothes iron, he survived snapping his neck. So easily sustaining third-degree burns on his palm. The level of nerves here would make this incredibly painful. Meanwhile, Marv is back up, trying to climb the stairs. As he walks up, he immediately steps on a nail, piercing his foot. The main issue, however, is the fact that he falls backwards. Marv has walked up like 7 stairs, which would put him on average about 4.5 feet up. Marv is larger than Pesci, so let's assume that he is around 200 pounds. He is falling on...
Leave us not forget, not only did he step on the nail, his feet were covered in tar. And I'm pretty sure that foot, he had stepped on a tar step before that, pulled it free, and then stepped on the nail. So that nail probably forced tar into his foot and into his bloodstream. Oh, like just all shades of blah. all shades of it right here.
Onto a hard surface, so instant stop with nowhere for the energy to go but through his body. This would be around 27,400 pounds of force traveling through his spine. Going back to the 2,200 pounds of force needed to damage a vertebrae, this is over 16 times. Wait, no, not 16 times. Somebody get Todd Howard out of here. This is over 12 times the force needed to damage your back. Even if the vertebrae are not damaged somehow, you are talking about rib fractures at this point, or at minimum, disc herniations. And this can pressure on the spinal cord as well, leading to temporary paralysis. However, it's much more likely that Marv would sustain greater injuries than Harry outside during his first fall. However, this is not really a guaranteed death, so we won't count it as of yet, although life-altering damage is definitely a possible outcome. So going around to the back door, Harry goes to break in, testing the doorknob first, as then he opens the door, and he has his hat lit on fire. Now, given the hat was there to absorb some of the heat, this was still a solid 5 seconds of flame contact. I counted.
Yes.
And this is what is known as a torch, which would cause very deep burns. And given that this is the scalp and not very thick, you're talking about burns all the way to the actual bone after about 5 seconds. This would not kill him unless the infection got him later, but this would permanently destroy the hair follicles. This episode is sponsored by Keith. Essentially, his scalp is forever altered by this event. Back up once more, Marv then grabs his crowbar and slips again. Pesci enters the home, now yelling at Kev's on the bus, as Harry heads down to the window barefooted. Opening a door, Pesci is then covered in...
Oh my god! Roanoke, stop it! You're triggering my dism! That was Marv heading for the window, not Harry! Chad, I think I'm in trouble if he keeps fucking up the names like this. I could be in trouble here.
Grease and feathered as well. Tar and feather your local politician. Marv then enters the house, immediately stepping on ornaments, slicing open his feet, and this would cause bleeding and very likely damage them. I mean, it would also be incredibly painful given all the nerves in the feet. If you aren't aware, the feet are highly innervated with pain sensors, and the reasoning is you need your feet to hunt. So if your body needs to know any part of it that is damaged, it's going to be the feet and what is happening there at all times, because if there's an injury there, it could be life-threatening if you can't chase after prey, so you need to actually let it heal. Therefore, your body has elected to have many pain receptors in this area. So, no death, but definitely hurting. Fighting one another, they then look ridiculous. Kev is upstairs as they slip on some micro machines, and this is a baseline fall of about 10,000 pounds of force, so still 5 times the amount needed to damage the spinal column. Not to mention, you gotta talk about the buildup of injuries. Let's say you slightly cracked your vertebrae. Any more direct hits could damage the already weakened vertebrae, causing far more reaching consequences. I have no idea why I said consequences that way. Yet somehow, they persist. Why do you persist, Mr. Anderson? Because they choose to rob people. I hate thieves. Anyway, so the psychopath then runs further upstairs as he throws down a paint can. Now, these are full and marked as 1 gallon, so these would be around 10 to 12 pounds. And given the pendulum
these things are heavy.
Here, let's assume the can is traveling about 13 miles per hour or so and then slams into the face of Marv. It would impact with almost 2,000 pounds of force. And given his previous injury,
it did hit Marv first,
weakening the integrity of the bone, this would induce a major facial fracture, furthering the problem and very likely giving Marv a traumatic brain injury, furthering the issue with his frontal lobe. Along with this, again, you're talking about cracked teeth at minimum and likely a broken mandible as well. I doubt a brain...
Actually, the paint can that hit Marv, I don't think hit him low enough. Because if you look, when Marv gets hit... Hang on. When Marv gets hit, he gets hit in... Kind of gets hit. Does he get hit in the face? Okay, maybe he does. I thought Marv got hit a little higher, like above the. For some reason. Oh, I'm thinking of Pesci. I'm thinking of when Harry catches it, because Harry's the one. Harry gets it in like the, but like the eye level. And Marv actually caught it square in the face.
Weakening the integrity of the bone, this would induce a major injury, likely a broken mandible as well. I doubt a brain bleed would really take place at this point, but this injury would be incredibly painful. And the same can be said for Harry when he gets hit with, I guess, all the information concerning the fall from the stairs applies here as well. Because of this, Marv has died for a second time, as this is his 3rd death, and Harry impacts and is cushioned, I guess, by Marv And if this is the case, if Marv somehow didn't die, this would break his ribs, severing the ribs from the spine very likely, collapsing the sternum. The shock itself could cause the actual heart to go into ventricular fibrillation, as the heartbeat is then disrupted, leading to his death as well. Either way, I don't think Marv survives this event. At this point, it's seen Harry is missing teeth as Kev then goes and calls the cops and hangs up. Ducking under the line, Harry then trips as Kev exposes Marv to the spider, freaking him out. Kev's on the bus, then goes to the zip line as Marv goes to help Harry. Raising
this part.
in a panicked way, we can assume somewhere around the range of 500 to 2,500 pounds of force is applied, hitting him with the crowbar. While hitting him in the chest, this would have put him firmly in the range of cracking a rib, mainly because ribs crack at around 700 pounds of force. And if 2,500 pounds were applied, this would have been catastrophic for a rib that got hit. Now, the issue is, cracking a rib is bad, but if the rib pure...
Yeah, and point of note, somebody pointed this out during movie night. Daniel Stern, the actor who plays Marv, is apparently has arachnophobia. And so he really was that terrified of the spider. But he still insisted that a real spider be used and went through with it anyway. And also, because the spider would have been incredibly sensitive to sound, Daniel Stern did not actually scream in that scene. He basically did a silent scream, and they added in the scream in post, because if Daniel Stern had actually screamed like that, it would have been traumatizing to the spider and could have potentially killed the spider. So when he opened his mouth and screamed, it was actually silent, and then in post they added him, they ADR'd the scream in. So yeah, like this, the man was dedicated because they offered to not use a real spider, and he said, "Nope, we'll go ahead and use a real spider," even though he is terrified of spiders.
The pleural cavity, this would actually cause a lung to collapse. And while not always seen as a massive issue today, this can very easily lead to death if not treated. Also, I'm not saying collapsing a lung is not a big deal. It definitely still is. This could also cause internal bleeding in the space, basically leading to suffocation due to your own blood filling up this area. And this means the lungs can't actually expand. It really just depends on how lucky you are, but the reality is this blow, at minimum, would crack a rib. Smacking Marv with a crowbar, easily a fractured humerus bone and radius of ulna bone if the forearm was struck. So Kev now nopes out of the house towards the treehouse as he breaks through to the other side. Marv and Harry suspect he committed the sewer slide, and doing the intelligent thing, they decide the best course of action is to go out on this rope and climb over to the treehouse. There was definitely no better route to take. Nothing could have been done. This is the best way to do this thing. So as they do, Kevin Bustin cuts the line, causing them to pendulum swing.
Okay, in fairness to the scene, Marv did initially want to go back down through the house, and Harry said, no, that's what he wants. He wants us to go back through his little fun house so they can get their shit pushed in all over again. And that's why they decided to hand over hand the rope line, because they thought it was all part of Kevin's plan to have them go back down into the house where he had more traps set.
Is the best way to do this thing. So as they do, Kev's on the bus then cuts the line, causing them to pendulum swing into the side of the house. And given the fall was quick and not really the same as a direct fall into the ground, I mean, if you take their weights and the fact that they were virtually in free fall for at least 1 second before swinging horizontally, this would put them at around roughly 22 miles per hour, hitting the wall. With their weights, this would mean Pesci would have hit at around 7,800 pounds of force, and Marv would hit at around 9,800. Because of this, the arms would act as crumple zones, absorbing the impact, but this would result in the radius and ulna bones being fractured. The elbows would then strike as well and would fracture at the tip, and likely they would become dislocated because of this event. The humerus bone would not fare any better, but when it breaks, it's very likely this would result in nerve damage to the area because it is also highly innervated. In fact, I had a fraternity brother who ended up breaking his humerus bone, and he couldn't feel, I believe, his forearm for like 2 months. Really wild. The feet would have broken as well because they struck, and this would actually cripple them, preventing them from giving chase. They would not die, but this would require an ICU trip and several months of healing. Along with these injuries, the ribs would likely sustain fractures as well, or at minimum severe bruising and intercostal muscle pain. Somehow getting up as they go to give chase to Kevin as he runs off, even with their broken feet, they then run to the neighbor's house as he heads to the basement, which is currently...
Interesting point of note, watch Marv.
Even with their broken...
Daniel Stern was still like going with that his feet were still very injured, and so he's not running normally. He's running on the heels of his feet, because the soles and the balls of his feet were still injured from the nail and from when he stepped on the ornament. So that was a nice little detail that Daniel Stern added into his acting. He still acted like his feet were traumatized when he was running, and so his running was all disjointed.
Feet. They then run to the neighbor's house as he heads to the basement, which is currently flooded. As then he goes upstairs, they have beat him to the door and then hanging him up on the door.
Well, that's a whole
Shovel
different
Killer
question,
arrives.
TX.
With the strength possessed and how they were actually knocked unconscious, it can be assumed that roughly 10,000 pounds of force was imparted. And this is catastrophic for the brain. The issue with this movement here is the brain on both of them would be kind of like going back and forth. And this is what happens with a concussion. Your brain literally bounces around inside of your skull. The back of the brain would then run into the occipital bone before slamming into the frontal bone. And this in turn would cause probably some bruising and a severe concussion, with the loss of consciousness confirming that damage has been incurred. With Harry, the reverse happens where it runs into the frontal bone first, and that would be more concussed with the initial hit. And this also renders him unconscious, which indicates he has also received brain damage. It is also very likely at this point that the brain bleed would be inevitable due to that much force being imparted into the skull. And this means essentially this is a double kill right here, which brings us up to 5 deaths in total. Grabbing Kevin.
Although, in fairness, this Kevin was not responsible for this one. This was the grandpa that did this one. So Kevin is blameless on this last kill. That's all I'm saying.
They then go outside as the cops show up and arrest Harry and Marv, who seemingly were still unconscious inside. So here's the thing. Life isn't like the movies. Being knocked out for a few seconds is bad enough, but if you are knocked out for several minutes, this indicates severe brain damage and likely dysfunction to follow. And this is a sign of a traumatic brain injury incurred and is likely going to be far-reaching, which in turn follow you for quite a while. Neuroplasticity would kick in and help offset it, but the reality is in older adults, it is limited in its abilities, meaning that the hit Marv received may result in visual problems due to damage to the area, and hit that Harry received, emotional control as well as cognitive thinking may be impaired. Getting pulled out of the house, the cops now know every house they hit as they left water running, which links them to their crimes. Telling them they're the wet bandits because they're idiots, they get put in the cruiser and then taken away. Kevin then taunts the robbers, likely to turn murderers, as he sets up the house for Christmas. Back in the Polka Hell, Mom of the Year talks about how...
By the way, can we also point out that Kevin cleaned up the entire house so it was spotless after laying all those traps, including the tar on the basement steps, including the fucking blowtorch that torched not only Marv but part of the door, all of the micro machines on the floor. What else? The iron, all of the broken glass from the Christmas ornaments. He cleaned all of that up, so except for his brother's room. Yeah, his brother's room, he said, fuck that, I don't care. But the entire rest of the house, he cleaned up so it was spotless. By the end of the night. By the end of the night. Yeah, well, he must have saw. No, actually, TJ, what I'm gonna say, I think the old man came over and salted the front steps for him afterwards. That's in my head canon. The old man, after everything was all said and done, the old man came over with his a barrel of salt and shovel and salted the steps for Kevin. That's my head canon.
As he sets up the house for Crimbus. Back in the Polka Hell, Mom of the Year talks about how she's a bad parent, as John Candy tells her she's not. But everyone here is. They're all bad parents. So yes,
well, there you go, Atanashi.
Well. So the next day, as Kevin then wakes up, it's Christmas. Running downstairs, calling out for his mom. She's nowhere to be seen. Looking outside, I write this, as again, I'm in Minot with a blizzard about to bear down on us apparently. And currently it's bearing down on me. And I'm recording this in a very cold truck. I wrote, I'll keep you posted. There you go, I kept you posted. Mom of the Year comes in, calling out for Kevin, and then sees everything set up as he runs downstairs and freezes up because, I don't know, reasons, I suppose. And saying Merry Christmas, she apologizes for being a terrible mom as they hug it out. He asks where everyone else is as they now all show up. There was another plane, and seemingly Mom of the Year didn't need to make the 703-mile trip, as Kevin reports he went shopping and everything's cool. Also, Kevin's about to get blamed for that broken basement door straight up. Finding a gold tooth on the ground, the father now becomes mega suspicious of his wife. Meanwhile, Shovel Killer is out there hugging it out with his son and granddaughter because he decided to stop being a nerd about calling his son. Again, life is finite. Make your amends. It's not worth holding on to crap. Buzz then yells at him for destroying his room at the end and thus concludes Home Alone. But anyhow, I want to thank you guys for watching. If you want me to do this again, maybe with like Home Alone 2 next year, let me know. This is a little outside of the norm, but I hope you enjoyed regardless. If you did enjoy, then please leave a like and comment as it helps get the video out there. Otherwise, you're a huge dork if you don't do that. I'll drop my Twitter, Discord, Instagram, Roanoake Tales link, and Patreon in the description. And if you'd like to support the channel,
Yes, they did,
you
Ryvan,
can go
although
click
they
that.
became the
Speaking of
Sticky
patrons,
Bandits
I'd like
for
to thank
Home
mine
Alone
real
2.
quick. At the astronaut tier, we have It's Not a Spoon, Kusith, and Lipsy Gingy. Thank you guys for your awesome support. At the astrophysicist tier, we have Death Dancer, Mayura, and Webitron Supreme. Thank you guys as well. And at the scientist tier, we have Stutz, Frank Shaftcrank, Some Big Nerd, Metric System, Invictus Echo, Official Texan, The Homeless Guy in the Street, Jason, and Scott Osteen. Thank you guys as well. And to the rest of my patrons, I really do appreciate y'all's support. You're absolute ballers. It goes a long way towards helping out. So thank you. But all right, that's going to do it for me. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I'll see y'all in the next one.
Okay, that was very educational.